We come to the last in this series of It's Just Not True, and today's theme is You Get What You Deserve. And our scripture is Luke 23:33 through 43. And it is the story of Jesus' crucifixion. Before we get to the scripture, I want to talk about crucifixion and the descriptions that I've read about it. First and foremost is that the cross that was used is not as we display the cross today, but it was in the form of a T, that you had an upright and then a crossbar that was placed on top of it. It is a crossbar that the prisoner was forced to carry through the city to the place of execution. And the place that they were taken outside the city is called the Skull. It is a rock outcropping, and I've seen pictures of this, that it looks very, very much like a human skull. The pockets that are in the stone there. It's very spooky how much it looks like a skull. The uprights were more than likely left in place up on the top of this outcropping. It was by the road where everybody passed by going in and out. And the Romans would have wanted this as a reminder to the people that what takes place there and possible as a deterrent. When the prisoner got to the place of execution, more than likely the upright was removed from the ground, and then the prisoner who had carried the crossbar would have been fitted into a slot on this upright, and then the prisoner would have been forced down onto the cross, and his hands nailed outstretched to the crossbar there. The feet generally were not nailed to the cross. There was a little platform there that the feet could just barely press on. And then there was a saddle about halfway up that the prisoner could use to support some of the weight. If it were not for these two things, the weight of the body, when the upright was pushed up and then slid down into the hole there to the socket, the force more than likely would have torn the body away from the cross. The nails would not have held it there. And so they had these other places, the feet, place to support the feet, and a place to support your back along the cross there. And it served another purpose, in that it helped to prolong the dying process. Crucifixion was a slow death. There was much pain and suffering, and that's exactly what the Romans wanted to happen to the prisoners and for everybody to see it. Let's turn to the scripture here and work our way through it. They also led two other criminals to be executed with Jesus. When they arrived at the place of the skull, they crucified him along with the criminals, one on his right and the other on his left. Crucifixion was a form of punishment that was used for the worst possible criminals. And it says that one of these men was a thief. Doesn't say anything about the other one, but generally crucifixion would have been reserved for what we would call criminals who have been placed in maximum security or on death row under our judicial system. And picking up the scripture, Jesus said, "Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they're doing." A prayer of forgiveness. Jesus, in his last prayer, is asking God to forgive the not only the Roman government, but also the religious leaders, that they did not fully understand his relationship with God and what it was that they were doing. And it says they drew lots as a way of dividing up his clothing, they being the guards. This was a perk that the guards got, that they received the clothing. The prisoner was crucified naked, and so the clothes were stripped off of them and then divided up. William Barclay says that there were four items of clothing. There would have been the outer tunic, an inner garment, a saddle. I guess from the way that's described, I would guess that's sort of like underpants. His sandals, and then the piece of cloth that was worn over the head. The tunic, or the outer garment, was woven in one piece, and to have divided it would have been to ruin it. So the prisoners cast lots. In other words, they were rolling the dice to see who was going to get that coveted garment there, the outer garment. Picking back up with the scripture, the people were standing around watching, but the leaders sneered at him, saying, "He saved others, let him save himself if he really is the Christ, sent from God, the chosen one." The soldiers also mocked him. They came up to him, offering sour wine, saying, "If you really are the King of the Jews, save yourself." Above his head was a notice of the formal charge against him. It read, "This is the King of the Jews." It was the practice of the Roman government for the prisoner to have his crime written out on something, parchment or something, and then that attached with a string around his neck, hanging, so that everybody could see what the prisoner was charged with. And for Jesus, that charge was that he was King of the Jews, which was, under the Roman government, that was treason, because Caesar was king, and for somebody else to proclaim themselves as king was to challenge Caesar's authority. So that was attached, once they got to the cross, that was attached to the cross. But the religious leaders protested this. They did not want Jesus acknowledged as King of the Jews. The sour wine. Here again, William Barclay provides some detail that there were some women who their ministry was to attend to the executions and to offer up drugged wine as a way of helping to deaden the pain, an act of mercy for the condemned one. And Jesus refused that. It says here that the soldiers offered it up. The way that's typically portrayed is that they dipped a sponge in it and put that on the end of a stick and then held that up to his mouth so that he could suck on it. And Jesus turned his head away from that, refusing that. So that he could experience the fullness of this act of crucifixion. He was not going to be drugged, so he wanted to be conscious, is what I wanted to say. Picking up with the scriptures, one of the criminals hanging next to Jesus insulted him. "Aren't you the Christ? Save yourself and us." Same thing that the religious leaders had been taunting him with. One of the criminals, I've lost my place here, and the other criminal spoke harshly to him, saying, "Don't you fear God, seeing that you've also been sentenced to die? We are rightly condemned, for we're receiving the appropriate sentence for what we did. But this man has done nothing wrong. The condemned man knew what they had done. They knew they were guilty, and the one is mocking the process. He's mocking Christ and his ministry. Don't know if he knew anything about Christ's ministry in that time or any of that, but the one thief did understand that Jesus did not deserve to be there on the cross. And so he's telling the other guy, if you had any sense, you would be asking for help from this man. And picking back up with the scripture, the one who had admonished the other thief says, "Then he said, 'Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom.' And Jesus replied, 'I assure you that today you will be with me in paradise.'" Much has been made over the years about deathbed salvation, deathbed conversion, and the salvation that comes with that, whether or not that's appropriate, legitimate. And here we find that this is exactly what happened as Jesus was being crucified, that he offers forgiveness and salvation to this man who confesses that Jesus Christ is Lord, King of Kings, and Jesus assures him that because of his faith, because of his confession, that he will share in that resurrection life. Jesus is the first fruits, and we've been promised to share also in that resurrection. In Mel Gibson's Passion of Christ, in this scene, there's a special effects that takes place, and the first time that I saw the movie, it went right over my head. It was only when I saw it a second time that it really struck home what he was portraying here. And the special effect is that as Jesus is dying on the cross, the camera pans back and then pans up, and it keeps on going up, 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 up. And then it starts coming back down, but the image is distorted. And it keeps coming back down, and then finally the image comes all the way down to the ground, and then it splatters, and you realize that the image is a drop of water that has come back down. What it came to me the second time that I saw this is that being a tear from God as his son is being crucified. I don't know whether that's what Mel Gibson intended with that scene, but that's certainly the way that it came across to me when I saw it that second time. And I can't help but think that this whole episode was one that caused God a great deal of pain, that his son, a part of him, had to die in this manner. Did Jesus deserve this? No. But without it, you and I would not be here today as his followers. So there was a greater good here, that Christ was, he didn't deserve to die this way, but he was willing to die this way so that we could have this life everlasting. Well, next week we start a new series entitled Everybody is Welcome. And this takes us through, includes Pentecost in it, as well as Mother's Day. And so we will be looking at the inclusiveness of God's kingdom that Jesus has brought into being. May God's blessings be upon you.